What is going on, everybody? Welcome to this episode of High Floor Football. My name is Sam Wagman. I am your host, and with me, as always, is my trusty co-host, the man himself, Jay Arsht. How you doing, man?
Good, Sam. How you doing? I am, I did one of those things where I say, how you doing? And then I didn't give you a chance to answer, but I'm doing good. I'm happy to be here. Happy it's Wednesday and excited to get the mock draft going. I mean, we've definitely finished a couple rookie drafts already. You and I probably have a couple more that are still upcoming. So I think it'll be good content, good stuff for everybody to kind of view, some people to participate. We have, 11 or 10 other people participating on Twitter and on Sleeper. So we're excited to get it going. And I think they are too. I mean, we put them all in a group text and everyone was getting excited. So I'm excited to get it started.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we get going, I have to take a second and shout out this awesome background that we haven't gotten a chance to use yet because we've had a guest on every show so far, except for the one I wasn't there. But this is the first show that it's just you and me. So we get this nice background that our very good friend, Steven Johnson, who you should definitely check out for any of your graphics needs, made for us. And shout out Steven because this is great. It's nice to see our names bolded in front of our pictures so that people know who they are. God forbid that people confuse me with Jay Arsht, right?
It is nice. It looks really good. I'm happy to use it. Just the two of us for the first time, which was the initial plan, and then we brought on guests who have been great. So yeah, it's exciting to kind of get to just talk about it, just the two of us. And like I said, we've got a full live mock draft going. So we're gonna have all of them chirping as well. So let's get this thing started.
Yep. So we are going to be doing a Dynasty rookie mock draft, and we're gonna do it live for you on the stream, and I will share my screen, and we will hop right into this thing. So let me get this done, and share the entire screen.
Hopefully you don't have anything else funny on your screen, Sam, you're about to share.
Nope, I do not. So we are going to get this draft started, and here we go.
All right, we've got Dan on the clock first. We're doing a 3-minute clock, going to try and move through it as quickly as we can. And Breece Hall, not much of a surprise, the 101. So I don't think we really need to talk about it too much, but we're going to try and recap what's going on in the draft when it gets to our picks. Spend a little bit of time, it's a 3-minute clock, but a little bit of time to kind of recap what's going on the rest of the draft. So we have got pick number 2 on the clock, which I'm expecting this to be a Kenneth Walker or Drake London pick. I'd be a little surprised if it's not, but everyone's got their preferences. So we'll see. Luck is made, FF. We'll see which way he goes here.
I'm pay no attention to this while I try to do this a different way. Here we go. There we go. That's much better.
And if you were sitting here at the 102, who would you be taking?
I would personally be taking what's it called? Garrett Wilson, as that's my wide receiver 1 in this class. But I know a lot of people like to take Kenneth Walker here. I don't think it's that big of a deal. For me, I just don't see Kenneth Walker as a RB1 in this class. And I think that his value is such that you can probably get him at the 105 or 106, and it would make more sense to take him there because I just don't see a very high ceiling for him. He has a great floor. He's going to get a lot of work right off the bat, but I just don't see him being in a position where he can kind of ball out like some of these wide receivers can. So I'm much more comfortable taking, guys like Garrett Wilson and Drake London and Jameson Williams over him.
Yeah, and Treylon Burks. So there I go, looking dumb with my foot in my mouth. I said I think it's going to be Drake London or Kenneth Walker. I'd be surprised if it wasn't. And there we go, Treylon Burks, which is a good pick. I think he's kind of been in that range in the drafts that I've done, from the 102 to about the 105. I haven't really seen him drop too far. the landing spot was just appealing, especially with AJ Brown moving, right before he got there. It kind of opened up the perfect opportunity. We talked about it on our other shows. That was the comp that everyone was kind of giving Treylon Burks as the ceiling, or at least what his body looks like. AJ Brown, he might not be the player AJ Brown is, but that was sort of the comp based on his body, based on his size. So he's landed in Tennessee, which is a great landing spot for him. And maybe the most potent of the rookie landing spots. I mean, he has a decent quarterback. He's got not much competition there with Robert Woods and Westbrook-Ikhine. So I think Treylon Burks should be the top guy.
Yeah, I mean, I love Burks because he gives you such a solid workload in year one right away. So it makes sense that he would be the pick here. I know Kyle's a huge fan of Treylon Burks as it is, but he just makes sense as the redraft rookie wide receiver one because of the massive workload he's going to step into right away.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with that. I would take Drake London and Garrett Wilson, as you said, ahead of Treylon Burks in this Dynasty rookie draft, but I don't disagree with that. I think in redraft, Treylon Burks should be in the conversation for the first guy.
Yep. I'm on the clock here, and like I said, Garrett Wilson is my wide receiver one in this class. I'm not going to go any different here. And for me, the floor you get with Wilson is so safe. And I know the offense is not the greatest. I know Zach Wilson's reputation is not the greatest. But if there was ever a year that Zach Wilson were to step forward, it's the year that he has offensive line help added with Mekhi Becton coming back. He gets running back help added with Breece Hall coming in. He gets Garrett Wilson. He has Elijah Moore. And they signed Tyler Conklin and CJ Uzomah this offseason and then drafted Jeremy Rucker. So this is, an offense where Zach Wilson is primed to have a better second year than he had a rookie year. I'm betting Garrett Wilson to step in there and start gobbling up some work right away. I think he's, like I said, the safest wide receiver in this draft. And I don't know if he has the highest ceiling, but I do feel safe as taking him here.
No, I love Garrett Wilson. And prior to the draft, he was my top guy. I moved Drake London up since the draft and a little bit before the draft, but it was those two for me. And kind of the flip side to what you said about Zach Wilson, and I'm not a Zach Wilson fan either, as I'll make public whenever I get the chance to. I don't hate the guy. I think he's got shows some flashes. I'm just not super confident in Zach Wilson moving forward. Like you said, they did put a great amount of talent around him. They're going to give him pretty much every opportunity to succeed. I think the flip side of what you were just saying with Garrett Wilson, though, is maybe you can even look past Zach Wilson in terms of if you love Garrett Wilson, the player, there's no guarantee that Zach's going to be there moving forward and deep into the future. If he doesn't work this year with Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, Elijah Moore, all the guys that you would – Michael Carter, he's got a good backfield. If he doesn't make it work with this offense that he has now, I think the time is going to be up on Zach Wilson. And I think we've seen in the NFL how quickly teams are willing to move off these quarterbacks when they don't, peak or at least show that they have that potential. So, we saw it with Josh Rosen. I don't mean to compare Zach Wilson to Josh Rosen, but it's just an example of, better guy comes along and you can be replaced. So I like the Garrett Wilson pick. Drake London is my first wide receiver. I've taken him in 2 rookie drafts now at the 103. So getting him at the 104 is nice. He's the first wide receiver I would take off the board. Him and Kyle Pitts, it's going to be interesting in Atlanta. They're going to be the top 2 targets. We'll see kind of how that's dispersed amongst the rest of the weapons in Atlanta, or lack thereof. So I like Drake London there. And then we got Jameson Williams going at the 105, which I also like. It's going kind of similarly to how I would go. I would switch Drake London and Treylon Burks. And aside from that, I think it's pretty close.
Yeah, I think for me, Jameson Williams, again, you're betting on what his talent is, not his immediate production. And we can definitely assume that Williams will be a little bit slow off the bat because, he's coming off this ACL injury. We know that typically it takes a little while to regain your burst and cutting ability as a wide receiver. Those are the 2 things that make Jameson Williams so dangerous. And of course, it's how he tore his ACL, was planning and cutting in the first place. So seeing him go here is a bet on his talent. And it's a bet I'm willing to take since really, he's probably the most dangerous wide receiver in this class.
Yeah. And
Right after that.
I want to touch on Craig's comment really quick. I knew I shouldn't have brought up Josh Rosen. I knew somebody would comment on it. I did not mean the exact comparison of Josh Rosen and Zach Wilson to their situations or anything like that. I was just more so saying that teams are willing to replace their quarterback, even if it's a high draft pick, if they find the right guy coming next. So like you were about to do, I'll recap kind of where we're at. So for anybody listening, the 101 was Breece Hall. It went Breece Hall, Treylon Burks, Garrett Wilson, Drake London, Jamison Williams, Chris Olave at the 106, Kenneth Walker at the 107, Skye Moore at the 108, Christian Watson 109, and we are at Craig at 110. He is on the clock.
I mean, the Chris Olave pick is interesting. Taking him over Kenneth Walker there is definitely a bet. Again, like I said, on how some people don't view Kenneth Walker's ceiling as very high. He's more of a floor guy in an offense like Seattle because they're going to run the ball a lot, but they're also not going to be in a position to score that much. So, this kind of balances out as a guy who probably gets 200, 250 carries in year one, but it remains to be seen what exactly he does with that volume. The 107 is very good value. It's actually the lowest I've seen Kenneth Walker fall this offseason. So props to Nick for picking him up there.
Yeah, that fell the way that you've kind of been preaching, is that you would take the wide receivers over Kenneth Walker, and that's really how the board fell. And I don't have a problem with that. I think that it really depends. I think Kenneth Walker is going to fall into a pretty good situation right away. And, you and I have bickered back and forth about how good that situation really will be. But as much as the offense might not be great, I think Kenneth Walker is going to get a lot of carries. He's going to get every opportunity. He steps into a big workload, and they spent decently high draft capital for him in terms of a running back. So we'll see. I'm a fan of Kenneth Walker. I think that, it was so funny when the video came out of him catching that one-handed pass that anybody could make. I mean, I could make that catch one-handed. You could make that catch one-handed. Anybody could have, but it was funny reactions because people are acting like Kenneth Walker couldn't catch. Nobody was ever making that assumption that he cannot catch. It was that he did not catch much in college. So we'll see how that goes in the pros. I mean, JJ Zacharysen's outlined some great research about guys that have not, had a great target share in college, and how that has kind of carried over to the NFL, where they haven't really turned into, target hogs or great pass catchers for running backs. And I don't think Kenneth Walker is going to be that either, but I think it's all about expectations. He might not be Nick Chubb, but I think it's going to be a similar sort of situation like that, where his ceiling is capped the same way Chubb's situation is, or his ceiling is capped the same way that Nick Chubb's ceiling is. But, you still get in that RB 12 to 15 range, Chubb, where I kind of envision a J.K. Dobbins would be if he was able to stay healthy. So I like Kenneth Walker there. I think it's really good value. I mean, getting him at the 107. I know Nick was a little heartbroken that Chris Olave went right before him, though, so.
Yes, and Nick has been very forceful in telling us that we should up our Chris Olave feelings. We're not willing. Craig is about to be auto-picked and pick Kenny Pickett. Poor soul. But
and there he goes.
George Pickens. There
he slides in with Pickens.
But before we go through
I'm sure he's got a great pun for that, for Pickens over Kenny Pickett.
Absolutely does. But before we talk about that, Skye Moore at 108, Christian Watson 109. The Watson pick is interesting. Skye Moore kind of speaks for himself at this rate. He's been rapidly rising up the draft boards, making it nearly impossible to get him where you want him to. Like Jamison Williams, he may not have a huge role in year one. He's probably going to be one of the slot guys, but factor in a little bit behind Juju in that rate for the Chiefs. But we're going to see him playing a nice package of roles because he is a really good player. This is a guy that had the highest grade against press in this draft class per reception perception. So that's really good for a guy that's 5'10", 190. A guy that can be pressed at a 90 plus percentile rate on the outside. That's insane. So it wouldn't shock me if we see him used. Now, I'm not saying he's Tyreek Hill, but I think he might be used a little bit like him. They might use him out of the backfield. They might use him, out of the slot. They may put him outside a little bit. I think there's a wide range of roles that you can put for Skye Moore. And for a group of 5 guy to have this good percentiles is really good and really promising for him.
Yeah, I don't think that's too much of a surprise at the 108. These rookie drafts are all interesting, because it really depends on where Kenny Pickett goes for a lot of these drafts in terms of what drops after that 1-9, 1-10, where it seems like it's a little bit of a tier break to an extent. If Kenny Pickett goes, maybe at the 1-8 to 110 or before that 1-8 to 110 range, and you're sitting there, you are normally blessed with a Chris Olave or a Skye Moore, or one of those guys falling out. But when Pickett keeps, stays on the board like this, nobody's taking him. It's going to push guys further up there. George Pickens went 110. I don't know if Kenny Pickett's going to go here either, because I think a lot of the time in these rookie drafts, who is taking Kenny Pickett are teams that need a quarterback, and we're in a rookie mock draft, where nobody needs to take Kenny Pickett.
Right.
So it's more about where the value is in terms of when they're willing to take him. I saw a crazy Kenny Pickett trade today in one of my leagues. He got traded for James Robinson, Isaiah Spiller in a third. It was Kenny Pickett in a second going for Spiller, James Robinson in a third, which I thought was kind of ludicrous. I mean, if you're going to take Kenny Pickett in the first round, which that manager did, you might as well have just traded out of your first round pick and gotten a little bit more of a package rather than end up trading him for 2 running backs and a pick. So,
well, it does look like Kenny Pickett's going to go here because
good. I'm happy he did. I'm happy.
This is going to be used against me. This is going to be used against me. I'm letting you know right now. Clip it if you will, but I will not.
And here it is, a comment from Craig. Sam, Skye Moore. Skye Moore, I'm saying he's Tyreek Hill, which is what Sam said. We all heard it. And there goes James Cook at the 112, which in rookie drafts that you've been in so far, do you think that James Cook at the 112 is almost later than you've seen him go?
I do, kind of. But at the end of the day, Cook is the guy that people are probably going to take as the third running back in this draft because of where he was drafted and the team that he was drafted to, being the Buffalo Bills. The problem with that for me is that I just don't see a scenario where he's used as more than a sub back. I think this is a team that doesn't care much about the run. They're happy to run it when they do. Otherwise, they're just happy to give it to Josh Allen. This is a team that doesn't pass much to their running backs. We've seen that in the last couple of years. Allen's got less than a 15% target share to running backs in the past couple of seasons. So the problem for me is finding enough situations where Cook is used to get a usable fantasy season out of him. And while he may be giving you, RB3 production, I just don't see, the value in taking him in the first round when, there's guys like David Bell, who I think will be an immediate contributor, John Mechie, who I think will be an immediate contributor, Jahan Dotson, who I'm about to take right now at the 203, who will be an immediate contributor. So, and I don't think that about Rachaad White and Dameon Pierce because they step into roles where there's actually going to be a lot of work. White, because Leonard Fournette is prone to, he gets nicked up here and there, might miss some time. And plus, he's a pro-ready guy who's ready to play right away and has the requisite size and weight. And Dameon Pierce, because he steps into a situation in Houston where he's probably the most talented back there by a healthy margin.
Yeah, and those were the next couple picks. I mean, it was a little bit of an RB run from James Cook to Dameon Pierce to Rachaad White, and not so uncommon. I mean, Dameon Pierce has been kind of going all over the place. I've seen him go as early as the 112. I've seen him make it to the third round in multiple drafts. So he's kind of gone all over the place. And Jahan Dotson at the 203, who you picked, I mean, it's a first round wide receiver, man. I mean, I was going to give Jeff Bell some crap when he was on our show last week, and we were kind of just talking about it, just playing devil's advocate. But, we make such a big point about draft capital, which is important. Draft capital is important. And we were having a conversation about Chris Olave, Skye Moore, and it was like, well, I'm going to take the guy who went number 11 overall over the guy who went number 55 overall, which I can't disagree with. I think that that's probably true. I think Chris Olave is a great pick there. But I wonder kind of why the same argument isn't being made for Jahan Dotson. I don't really need to wonder. I know why. Washington football team, not super attractive. Carson Wentz, not super attractive. just not a great organization in general. And Jahan Dotson really wasn't as high of a prospect as some of the wide receivers that went ahead of him. That being said, he wasn't, the last receiver taken in the first round either. He went 16th overall. So Jahan Dotson doesn't seem to be getting the draft capital argument that a lot of other players are. So, I mean, falling to the 2-3 is great for him. I am on the clock right now, so let me see who I'm going to take.
Don't want to auto pick in your own draft.
I don't want to auto pick in my own draft, and it's funny to not really have any needs, anything I'm trying to fill, just kind of taking the most interesting player. So I'm going to take who I believe has the most upside. And, historically, a player like this does not have the most upside, but I'm excited about him, and so I'm going to take Wan'Dale right there at the 204. I've gotten him much later in rookie drafts. I got him at the 212 in a draft you and I were in together. I've seen people, on Twitter, different fantasy analysts saying, how is this happening? I'm not seeing him get past the 2.5. I'm seeing him go early second. So another guy similar to Damian Pierce, where we're seeing him kind of go all over the draft. This year, when it gets to this sort of range, we're only in the second round, but I think Wan'Dale's got some of the most upside here. He wasn't somebody that I was initially super interested in, but he got drafted earlier than I think we all expected to a team where there might actually be, a little bit more of an opportunity than it seems on the surface. Sterling Shepard's been hurt year in and year out, unfortunately, because I love Sterling Shepard, and Kadarius Toney's, in and out of trade rumors all the time. There's things swirling around him, and the Kenny Golladay signing did not exactly work out how they thought it was going to. So get Wan'Dale there, with a fresh offense, fresh coordinator, fresh head coach. They picked him early. They invested in him. So hopefully he has a little bit of a different situation his rookie season than Rondale Moore, who is a little bit of a size comparison for him. So after the first round, so we got Damian Pierce at the 201, Rachaad White at the 2-2. Sam got Jahan Dotson at the 2-3. I picked Wan'Dale Robinson at the 2-4. Tolbert went at the 2-5. Then we got David Bell at the 2-6, and Nick is on the clock at the 2-7.
I mean, I want to go back to the Wan'Dale pick a little bit because that's very interesting. Like you said, we've seen him go all over the draft. I'm really quite intrigued to see how Brian Daboll chooses to use him and to scheme him around. This is a guy that can be moved around the formation. Guy like Cole Beasley, who he's kind of closer in size to. Comes to mind. You can move a guy like that all around the middle underneath of the field. And I think we see Wan'Dale get some running back carries as well. He was recruited out of high school as a running back. I know that doesn't mean much when you translate to the NFL, but it does bear, keeping in mind that this is a guy that can kind of move all around. And I'm going to go back to when the Eagles had Darren Sproles and kind of use that as a thought. Another guy who's a very close size weight comparison to him. The Eagles used him all around the formation. They lined him up in the slot. They lined him up out wide a couple times. Obviously he was a running back out of the backfield. They did a lot of things with Darren Sproles. Now I am not, again, please do not twist my words. Wan'Dale Robinson is not Darren Sproles.
But you heard it here. Wan'Dale Robinson is Darren Sproles.
He could be used very similarly, and I'm intrigued. A creative play caller like Brian Daboll is going to be able to utilize him, and they could wreak havoc on teams with Kadarius Toney and Wan'Dale Robinson. Well, go ahead.
Oh, well, I think those are interesting. I mean, going back to even Craig's comment, one of the participants in our draft here, talking about a different situation, different quarterbacks coming in, things like that. I always find it interesting, especially we talk about draft capital, we talk about where guys go, different how coaches are going to use them. But when it's a new coach and a new regime that comes in and they use some of their first couple picks on certain players, I do think that's really interesting because you're starting off like your whole career on that team with these first couple picks. And so spending it on Wan'Dale, a guy who I think everyone's a little curious to see how he's going to get used. I think they must have a plan. I don't think you just go in, unsure how you're going to use that guy and spend that sort of pick on him when there were so many other players still on the board in the NFL draft. Right after David Bell at the 2-6, Nick picked his man, Matt Corral, at the 2-7. And then Malik Willis went at the 2.8, Tyler Algier at the 2.9, and now Craig back on the clock at the 2.10. So we had a mini quarterback run in the middle of the second.
Yeah, so let's talk this Matt Corral pick. I mean, over Desmond Ridder, over Malik Willis. Corral goes to the Panthers. Look, like I said last week on the show with Jeff, this is, we're not going to sugarcoat this. Sam Darnold is bad. No matter what Sam Darnold thinks in his own mind, he's not good. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see what happens there. I think Matt Corral wins this battle out of camp, and he's the starter going into week 1. I think that's probably the best thing for the Panthers. Matt Corral, he can spin it. He can spin it. He's got probably the best deep ball accuracy in this class. And I think that he's pretty underrated as far as this quarterback class went. And there was a reason the NFL invited him to the green room. They thought he had a good enough chance to go in the first round that he was to be there. And while I'm not a fan of picking him over Desmond Ridder, I can see people picking him over Malik Willis because of the implied time that Willis might have to wait to become a starter. And I'm, like I said, fan of Corral's skill set. Not so sure that he does a lot in year 1 while he adjusts to the NFL level, but he could be very good in a couple of years.
Yeah, and it's quite the conundrum because I agree that Sam Darnold is #not good. So it's confusing because I don't think he should be starting week 1. I can't imagine if you had asked me at the end of the season if Carolina was going to roll into week 1 with Sam Darnold again. I mean, no, I wouldn't have believed it. I would have thought maybe it was Deshaun Watson personally. I thought they were going to have a better chance at him. But that they actually have Sam Darnold probably listed as the starter going into week 1, unless something changes. Like you said, Matt Corral could beat him out. It's definitely possible. But it would be more so unexpected, because I think people don't expect Corral to be starting right away. There's as much a reason that he got invited day 1 to the draft and he was in the green room as he went, day 3. So I think there's reason for both. The NFL clearly wasn't in line with whatever the media and the NFL planning was doing, inviting him to sit in the green room all day 1. So it'll be really interesting to see. And with these quarterbacks, I think Desmond Ridder plays this year. I think Matt Corral plays this year. Kenny Pickett will for sure play this year. And I don't think Malik Willis will without an injury. And, as much as I love Malik Willis, who went 208, he went right after Matt Corral. I love Malik Willis. There's nothing really not to like about the person for sure. He seems like a very likable dude. Seems like he's got great charisma, great personality, and seems like he's got a lot of upside. But when you go day 3 and you have a guy in front of you like Ryan Tannehill, not great, but good enough to definitely hold you off, you have to worry, if he doesn't get a chance. Is Tennessee going to hold out for Malik Willis to get his shot? I don't know. And it's same with Desmond Ridder and Matt Corral. I think that they're really going to have to come in, take advantage of whatever opportunity they have. And if they do, maybe we'll see another year of them. Maybe they'll be great values in Dynasty. I mean, getting Matt Corral in the mid-second if he ends up being the starter, or getting Desmond Ridder in the second if he ends up being the long-term starter there. I mean, they would be great values, but I'm a little skeptical to see if they're actually going to get their shot if they don't succeed year 1, whatever opportunity that is. Kenny Pickett, he kind of put himself in his own tier in terms of these rookie quarterbacks in my mind, because being a first-round pick, being picked significantly higher than these other guys, Kenny Pickett will have a shot. Even if it doesn't work out perfectly this year, he will have a shot. He's a first-round quarterback, and they're not going to give up on him that quickly. Right after Malik Willis went, like we had Tyler Algier went, we had Isaiah Spiller at the 210, Desmond Ridder at the 211, Mechie at the 212, Trey McBride at the 301, and then Alec Pierce at the 32.
Yeah, I mean, look, going over Ridder, like I said what I needed to about Ridder. He was my my QB2 in this class. I'm still a huge fan of him and Malik Willis, regardless of where they went in this draft. So I'm on board with Ridder. This is the latest I've seen him go, and I would be ecstatic to get him at the 211 in this spot. Big fan of John Mechie. He was my wide receiver 8 coming into the draft. He leaves it as wide receiver 9 or 10. Obviously slips down a bit because of the landing spot, but I'm so much again.
let me ask you about Alec Pierce, because I've also seen him kind of all over the place. I saw him in a draft yesterday go at the 201, which was the earliest I've seen him. And then I've seen him floating around in the third round with people trying to trade up because they see the value, other people passing on him, over and over again. So what do you think of Alec Pierce? Are you excited about him? This rookie year, Matt Ryan.
He got the draft capital and he got the landing spot. One of them that I was really hoping that a player of Pierce's caliber would get. Big fan. And look, he's 6'3", 218 pounds. He's got the weight and the size requisite to be an alpha. And he matches up with one of my favorite alphas in this league in Michael Pittman. And he gets Matt Ryan, who can still throw, to throw him the ball. I think this is a great landing spot for him. I'm a huge fan. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see what he does in year one, because while I do believe he's going to be used mostly as a field stretcher, and they'll let Michael Pittman go back to being the chain mover of this offense, which is probably what he should be. Look, he's a great talent and he can win. So this is going to be two hulking guys in the red zone, and you're going to have that with the threat of Jonathan Taylor. So it's a three-pronged monster that when you get down to the red zone is going to be really, really hard to stop. So we could see a lot of points for Alec Pierce in year one. And I probably wouldn't hesitate to have him of guys that'll contribute in year one. He might be in my top 7 or 8 of wide receivers that contribute right away.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I've seen him all over the place. So I am on the board at the 3-4. You just picked Tyquan Thornton at the 3-3, the speedster. You can tell us a little bit about that. I'll think about my pick here.
Yeah, I mean, and look, so I almost took someone else who I'm a very big fan of, but the thing with Thornton is that everyone assumes that Belichick can't draft, but this kid can actually play and he can run. Now, look, everyone kind of frowns. Everyone has flashbacks to John Ross a couple of years ago when you draft guys, significantly for speed. But Thornton can play. Thornton can catch. But he can also rack up the yards. He had over 1,200 yards this final season at Baylor. He's a good player. This is a guy who can really do a little bit of everything. He can line up on the outside. He's still 6'3". So I'm excited for what he could be to this offense. Mac Jones, the problem comes in with Mac Jones and his arm. And the whole thing all along is that Mac Jones can't throw the deep ball, which I still don't think he can that well. And he wasn't great at it last year. But if you let Thornton use his speed and you put plays to him on screens and put him in the slot and let him work out of there, it might work for him. And I think he could be a dynamic weapon in a couple of years after he gets some seasoning. But this is definitely an interesting pick by them to take him in the second round, and we'll have to see where it goes. But in the third round, you're looking for ceiling plays, and this is firmly a ceiling play for me.
Yeah, I mean, Thornton went earlier than I think anybody expected, as did most of the Patriots draft picks this season. So we got some surprises from them. I mean, I think, again, he went earlier and before a lot of players than we expected to already have been off the board. I don't really know what the Patriots' plan is for him. I mean, I would assume he's going to be – he's at least different, than Kendrick Bourne and Jacoby Myers, in the sense that, I mean, he has a different skill set. He brings different things to the table. So we'll see what happens with him. I mean, it's one of those things where when you get to the midway through the third, which is kind of what I'm going to touch on when I get to my pick as well, is, the draft capital does matter. And it's kind of when you're deciding between a couple things, that can kind of be the thing that pushes you over the top, where it's like, well, at least this team invested in this player to this extent where they don't want to look stupid for doing that either. They want to give him every opportunity. So Tyquan Thornton there makes sense to me. I mean, I've gotten him in the fourth round of drafts as well. So he's kind of all over the place. I picked Tyrion Davis-Price right after. And again, kind of talking about the draft capital argument, I was thinking of these two running backs that went after my pick. It went Tyrion Davis-Price, Brian Robinson, and then Zamir White at 3-6. So I was thinking about both of those two as well, but kind of going going off of those three, I mean, we are talking about a dynasty league, but we also need some, some production right away, or especially for some of those running backs, you might not ever get it. I mean, Brian Robinson's a little bit older. Behind Antonio Gibson, they brought back J.D. McKissick. Zamir White behind Josh Jacobs, who, they didn't give the fifth year option to, which I understand everybody's getting excited about Zamir White for that reason. That being said, are we sure that if Josh Jacobs moves on, the Raiders are going to latch everything on to this fourth round running back? I don't know. I don't necessarily think that's true, but it could be. So I understand the appeal of Zamir White. I think he's a good player. But it looks like Josh McDaniels is trying to, set up his own little Patriots stable of running backs there and, make a big timeshare. And to what I just said, Tyrion Davis-Price might be in the same sort of situation. You got Elijah Mitchell there. You have Trey Sermon there. I don't know that he's necessarily going to take over any backfield. I don't think he's going to be a workhorse by any means, but whatever the Niners saw in Trey Sermon last year, I don't think they were impressed. We had all the reports coming out of camp that it was Trey Sermon's season. Trey Sermon is going to have a big year, take him early in the rookie drafts. We all did, and the Niners went a completely different direction. So then they came back into this draft, took another running back earlier than we thought they would. And I think they are going to try and find a way to use him. I think he is essentially a Trey Sermon replacement. Eli Mitchell's coming off, some different injury issues this offseason. So we'll see. But I don't think the Niners would have used – they didn't have a ton of draft picks in general early on. So I don't think they would have used him on a running back if they weren't going to find out a way to use him. So I'm picking him with the idea that maybe he gets a shot a little bit quicker than some of these other guys that went on day 3. And maybe gets a chance to go on the field. I mean, Brian Robinson, different story, but I still think he's an injury away, whereas Davis-Price might not be.
I have a different opinion on Davis-Price than you. I actually think he's a replacement for Jeff Wilson. Very similar build. Tyrion Davis-Price is 230 pounds, nearly the same as Jeff Wilson. And I actually think that this is less an indictment on Sermon, and I think this is a 3-headed committee at this point. I think the bulk of the early down work will go to Eli Mitchell. He earned that last year, but I think you're going to see Sermon and Davis-Price work in as change of pace backs and receiving backs more weighted towards Sermon. And I think, look, you don't draft players just to ditch them the year after. And I know Sermon had a very down year, but I think this is more an indictment on Jeff Wilson, who's constantly injured, is only useful at the goal line. And that's primarily the role you're going to see for Davis-Price when he swaps in, is to be that goal line hammer that a lot of teams covet in their running game. And I think this is primarily going to be a Eli Mitchell-led committee, 3-man committee.
I don't necessarily disagree with that, but as much as I would like to also believe that, a team wouldn't draft a guy and then just, get rid of him the next year. They wouldn't just have drafted him without the idea of how he's going to fit. But have we also seen, at least I can't remember really off the top of my head, another situation that was so drastically different than Trey Sermon's, how reality actually was compared to the reports where, there was and I'm not just talking fantasy. Just generally speaking, Niners beat reporters were talking up Trey Sermon like, he had the job, like it was his to give away. And not only was it, that he didn't start off with the job, it's that, throughout the season, he just never really changed his role. Nothing really changed for Trey Sermon. So I don't know that they would ditch him necessarily and just, move on from him, but I kind of think they saw what they needed to see to at least add another guy. But I don't think you're wrong. It could be a replacement for Jeff Wilson. Either way, picking one of these running backs, like that was kind of the point I was making. Taking Davis-Price on the Niners over maybe a Brian Robinson or a Zamir White, who are at least an injury away from getting on the field significantly. And maybe next year, which again, we're talking about Dynasty, maybe things change for them next year, but I don't think that the NFL teams are necessarily latching onto their, third or fourth round running back for the future unless he really proves something. And I worry about that with Zamir White a little bit, that he might not get the opportunity until Josh Jacobs is gone. When Josh Jacobs is gone, they might continue to add other running backs around him. And at 311, Nick auto drafted it and took
Gets
Shakur right there.
Pick in the draft.
to Khalil Shakur. And then we got Sam Howell go at 3-8, which is another one, I haven't seen Sam Howell go really much higher than that. He's typically in the third round, but I've seen him last until, midway through the fourth as well. Do you think that the way we were talking about Matt Corral and Desmond Ridder, at least those two, getting a chance to get on the field this year, what do you think of Sam Howell? Because I'll give a quick piece before I hand it off to you. But we've seen Carson Wentz self-destruct before. We talked about it on our last show. I think if you looked at the box scores or his stats last year, yeah, and there we go. I'm gonna touch on the nervous bird in a second, Jordan. So let me get there. But Sam Howell
is a psychopath.
Might have a chance to get on the field, though. Carson Wentz has come in there off they didn't trade much for him. I think that their idea is to give Carson Wentz kind of everything he can handle. They have Terry McLaurin. They brought in Jahan Dotson in the first round. He has Antonio Gibson. He has McKissick. He has the weapons to figure it out. But we've seen Carson, man. We've seen him be good. We've seen him be bad. And when he's bad, he's really bad. And I heard somebody say this recently on a podcast. So I won't make it my own point. But Sam Howell probably should be more worried about Taylor Heinicke than he is about Carson Wentz, because Heinicke's also a pretty good player for an NFL backup. So Sam Howell might have to get over that obstacle first. Either way, I think there's a chance he could see the field, so I don't think it's that bad to take him here in the third round. But I'm a little concerned about the chicken thing. I will touch on that. I think that is concerning, Jordan. Thank you for your comment here. The dude only eats chicken. He's chicken's a nervous bird, as Jim Harbaugh said, and I'm a little worried about that. I'll tell this story quickly while we're doing this because it's just funny. But have you ever heard about Andrew Luck? Andrew Luck also was a chicken guy. I don't know that he never ate steak, but the story goes that Peyton Manning, and I think it was St. Elmo's, the same steakhouse that they go during the combine, but Peyton Manning used to take out, the backup quarterbacks and coaches and a couple other people to a steakhouse after, every home game. And he used to sit at the same table they had reserved for him and everything. And Peyton used to order a steak. And I can't remember who told this story. Maybe it was Daniel Jeremiah or something. Peyton used to order the same steak every time. Everyone got steak at the steakhouse. When Peyton moved on and Andrew Luck came into Indianapolis and he was the quarterback, he used to go to the same steakhouse. It was tradition. They'd sit at the same table, and Andrew Luck would order chicken. And from what I had heard from whoever was telling this story, it's a game of telephone at this point. But whoever was telling the story then, that was the sign, man. And love Andrew Luck. He gave it all he had, but he clearly didn't have the it factor, that Peyton Manning had to stay there. And maybe that it factor was some steak.
I have to keep this Howell is a psychopath thing. Don't sue me up here, because it really just is the epitome. How do you not like any other meat except for chicken?
Oh, it's not like he said he's never had it.
He's never had it. That's the craziest part out of all of this.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. You ever had a nice ribeye? Man, that thing is like there's just no way to describe it, and that's why I don't think Sam Howell has what it takes. He's going to lose the backup job to Taylor Heinicke. He's going to be relegated to the clipboard and the third string for this season and possibly every other season after that, because he's not willing to try steak.
And Taylor Heinicke's still, pushing for that Heineken endorsement, which I don't think he's gotten, which blows my mind. But yeah, talking about him in the rookie draft, Sam Howell, in the third round, worth a flyer, or
definitely worth a flyer.
Yeah, okay. So we got definitely him at the 308. Jelani Woods went at the 3.9, Hassan Haskins at the 3.10, Keonta Engram at the 3.11, Taylor Beatty at the 3.12, and then we got Isaiah Pacheco at the 4.1, who I was hoping for, Dan. What the fuck, man? Come on.
Now, I think Jordan brings up a good point here. He's a big Hassan Haskins guy, and I can see where he's coming from. What puts me off Haskins is the fact that he's got Dontrell Hilliard in front of him. He's still got Henry there, of course. What he says has merit, because the Titans could go in the complete opposite direction that they went last year and completely bottom out in a very improved AFC. So I could definitely see this happening. It would be very interesting to see, but
yeah, let me read what Jordan said, just so anybody listening. He said Derrick Henry's coming off an injury season. deciding not to pay AJ Brown, drafting Malik Willis, AFC got better, and the Titans could miss the playoffs and be ruled out early this year.
Yeah, but that does make a lot of sense. We could see them go in a different direction, but I don't know if that makes Haskins a guy I want to be starting. I don't know if he gets more than some mop-up work there. That's that's my piece on him. Jelani Woods is really interesting to me because he's obviously the next Mo Alley Cox in Indy. And
what a great how great would it be to be the next Mo Alley Cox?
Hey, I mean, he's a 6'7" freak.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of guy I want to bet on in the third.
Hey, I'm not hating on Jelani Woods. I just thought it was it was like, the next Travis Kelce. No, you could be the next Mo Alley Cox.
Oh, yeah.
Which is someone only people like us pay attention to at this point. But to touch on your point about Hassan Haskins, when you're picking running backs in this range, which, maybe Jordan will comment here as well, and maybe that's kind of what he's thinking too. I mean, that's kind of what he said in his comment. It's not that it's going to be right away. It's not that it's an immediate impact. But when you're taking guys in this range, the late third, early fourth, I mean, you're taking guys where you do have to kind of think a little bit in the future. You have to kind of find a route, see how they could, maybe get on the field and make an impact. So after Haskins, the 310, like I said, we had Keonta Engram. 311, Tyler Beatty, 312, and we are up to the 403 with Kyron Williams going at the 42. I love Keonta Engram, man. I think he's a really fun pick.
Good.
We had our 20-team Dynasty League that we're in, where we did our draft. Greg, Mo Alley Cox is a top-tier name. Yes, he is. That
Definitely.
is for sure. Top-tier name. Nice.
Very S-tier. Very S-tier.
But we did our 20-team Dynasty League, and we had our draft prior to the NFL draft. Keonta Engram was someone who I got relatively late, and I was excited about him. I mean, shout out Angelo Analysis. I mean, he was on here talking about him a couple weeks before the draft, giving us a little bit of input on Keonta. And he landed in a fun spot, man. I think we wanted any of these running backs to land in Arizona. We wanted Arizona to at least invest in a running back. I mean, you have James Conner, who they brought back. And aside from him, it's Benjamin, who people were kind of getting excited about in his own right, because it's like, oh, well, what if James Conner goes down? Benjamin, stud at Arizona State, was once upon a time, I think, going to go a lot higher than he eventually did in the NFL draft. But, Keonta Engram falls right into that role where it's, competing with Benjamin, maybe, if James Conner goes down. It's a nice spot to be in. I like to have that sort of upside in an offense like Arizona. And then you picked Justin Ross here at the 4-3, the new Kansas City UDFA. So you can give us a little talking point on that as I'll take my fourth round.
Yeah, and before I get to Justin Ross, Tyler Beatty is an interesting guy, an undersized guy, but he's a guy that scored a 79 on Next Gen Stats assessment of him, which grades out to a very safe projection for his future, and I really like that. It may production this year gets a little bit difficult because they just signed Mike Davis, and he'll probably operate as the third string back there. But I'm completely okay with that. Beatty is a guy who I really like the production of work coming out of him, and that should be great. Pacheco is a really interesting guy in Kansas City. Him and Jerrion Ealy both were UDFAs that went there, but Pacheco is a guy who has really safe hands, and I'm really looking forward to see what he does. Kyron Williams, obviously everyone's RB4 pre-combine, and then sunk like a rock when he ran a 4.68, I believe it was. So obviously not something you want to see in your running back when you're looking for speed. So he dropped there, but landing in LA is really interesting for him. And then obviously for me, Justin Ross is, when I come up in the fourth, if Justin Ross is there, I'm taking him every time. Because, look, it's Justin Ross. The guy had one of the greatest 18-year-old seasons, age-adjusted production in all of college football history. Like, he is, talent-wise, a first-rounder. Health-wise, it's a coin flip. I mean, when you got doctors saying that one wrong hit could paralyze the guy, we understand why he went undrafted. There were rumors that he couldn't pass a physical. The Chiefs obviously saw fit to give him a shot. I think he deserves a shot. Like I said, this guy is so talented that he could easily be something for an NFL team. And even if he's not, he deserved his chance. If he thought he was healthy enough and he got his doctors to clear him, he deserves a shot to play. And I'm happy he got a shot with the Chiefs, because it really is a game changer if he turns out to be able to move past these medical concerns. I have my own thoughts about whether he sticks or not. He might not. Bo also is of the opinion that he doesn't stick, but it won't be for a talent reason. It'll be for a health reason, 99%.
Yeah, I mean, I think he landed in the perfect spot as an undrafted free agent, with a decently open wide receiver room too. So I like that pick. I was debating between Pierre Strong and Romeo Doubs at the next pick.
Doubs is a good pick.
I picked Romeo Doubs there, and I think that I was going to tweet this, but just kind of a funny thing. I didn't want to upset too many people. But, I mean, is there a chance that Doubs is the more productive wide receiver in Green Bay than Christian Watson? I mean, we're all ready to take Christian Watson in the first round. We're letting Doubs fall to the fourth. They both have that same quarterback that we're excited about, that bad man, Aaron Rodgers. So, I don't know. I mean, there's a little bit of a conversation. Christian Watson was in college for 5 years. I mean, he's coming a little bit older. Super athletic, great traits, a lot of skills, but might take a little bit of time, coming from North Dakota State, having to adjust in the NFL. Doubs coming from Nevada, not necessarily a powerhouse school, but maybe a little bit more well-adjusted with the competition. In the NFL, they're both coming in as rookies. They're both going to have to start at the same spot. I'm not saying I'm taking him over Christian Watson, because I'm not. I just took him in the fourth round. But is it not like a conversation that maybe he has, a little bit more of a productive rookie season, a little bit more productive early on production than Christian Watson does, while he takes time to adapt? And, who knows if he gets it back. So, I mean, it's interesting. We're excited about Christian Watson. He's an exciting player, but also because he's with Aaron Rodgers. Doubs is also with Aaron Rodgers. So we'll see kind of which one, gets ahead in training camp. I wouldn't be surprised if Doubs maybe, make some waves in training camp and through the offseason, and we start to maybe think about him a little differently.
I could see Doubs making some sort of an impact in his rookie year over Christian Watson. I think Watson is really, really raw. And I think you're really betting that he develops and develops quickly. And that's why I've been having such trouble taking him as anything more than a second round pick.
And we had Pierre Strong go at the 4-5, Dulcich at the 4-6, Otten at the 4-7. And we had Kevin Harris go at the 4-8, Calvin Austin at the 4-9, Velus Jones at the 4-10, and we had Jerome Ford go at the 4-11, and the Mr. Irrelevant is on the clock for Seth.
Look, I'm a guy that had Pierre Strong really highly on my running back board. I'm disappointed that he went to New England, but I see the writing on the wall. I think Damian Harris leaves in free agency, and the team moves forward, rolling with Kevin Harris, Pierre Strong, and Ramondre Stevenson after next season. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of how this running back room shakes out. But Strong is a guy who can catch the ball out of the backfield, which is not really something that they have currently in that backfield right now. So Harris also profiles as 3-down skill set. So we'll see how that shakes out. But Strong could be the James White replacement that the Patriots have not bothered to look for long time. So
they tried. JJ Taylor tried. I got excited about it. I thought JJ Taylor was going to work in that role. But I think one of my favorite picks from this draft was probably yours at Jahan Dotson at 2-3, just because the upside's there, the opportunity is going to be there, and I touched on it, I believe, on our show with Jeff as well. But I mean, just we're two Eagles fans, just an interesting thing to talk about. But Jalen Reagor, complete failure. We've seen it, time and time again. Did he get every opportunity to work? Yes, every opportunity. The Eagles gave him every opportunity. He's a first-round pick. Jahan Dotson will get every opportunity to get on the field and make it work. Whether that happens or not will be up to him. I think Jahan Dotson's a really good player. But the fact that he's falling to almost the mid-second of these rookie drafts over guys who went, day 2, day 3, and draft capital is not everything. But, I mean, he's also not a guy that we hated. It's not like people had Jahan Dotson as their wide receiver 10 coming into the draft and he went way overdrafted. people probably had him as their wide receiver 5, wide receiver 6, and he went as the wide receiver, 4 or 5? I mean, he went right before Treylon Burks.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting. It's just something to me where, I mean, I feel like we're acting like, this is a similar thing to where, who can I bring up here? Clyde Edwards-Helaire, for instance, pre-draft was everybody's RB4, RB5. You had Jonathan Taylor, you had Akers or Dobbins or, Swift ahead of him. And the draft capital changed that for a lot of people. CEH got drafted higher, he went higher. Jahan Dotson, that's just not the case. I mean, he was a lot of people's wide receiver 5, wide receiver 6, 7, right in that range, kind of right outside that top tier. And, Daniel Jeremiah was talking about it, weeks leading up to the draft, he was going to go higher than people expected. He did. And it kind of wasn't a massive surprise. I mean, 16 was a little high, but I don't think anyone was surprised he went in the first round. And so the fact that he's still going where he is in rookie drafts, I find interesting. And I think it's something that, down the line, we could regret a little bit. Not maybe you and I, but some people, that are just fading Jahan Dotson based on maybe the team or the quarterback. We're fading him over guys who went much later than him. So I have Jahan Dotson there as one of my favorite picks of the draft, just because of the value.
I think for me, my favorite pick of the draft, I think it's probably this Alec Pierce pick. I definitely touched on it a bunch. But at 302, it's later than I've seen in a little while. I keep seeing him, go at 207, 208. But he's usually gone before the third round. And I really think that people are not including him in guys that should be ready to contribute right away in this class. And I really think he will be. I think she should be being drafted in like the same area that David Bell is. And look, he's going to be in a very good offense to throw the ball. That offense runs a ton of play action. Matt Ryan still likes to throw the ball downfield. So he should be good enough to put some production up. It wouldn't shock me to see him get, a bunch of looks in the red zone, 700, 800, 900 yards year one. And I really like that pick there. I like the value. And it's not often you see guys go in that third round that are really ready to contribute right away. So that was my favorite pick. And yeah, go ahead.
Well, thanks to everybody for doing the draft, but just in general, anybody that's still here in the chat, because it looks like a couple of them are still buzzing. We'll give you a second. Anybody want to comment here with their favorite picks of the draft, their favorite values, maybe some picks that they thought were just great picks at the spot? Comment. We'll talk about it real quick. I know Bo's got a lot in the chamber.
Bo's got an opinion.
He's got an opinion for sure. So let's see if they've got any. I mean, just while anybody's commenting here, like we talked about, I mean, Kenneth Walker maybe going at the 1-7 was a little surprising. I mean, that was the furthest I've seen him go, the furthest you've seen him go. You've been preaching that's where you would take him after those wide receivers. So credit to you for that. But I mean, I haven't seen him actually drop there. And I think it has to do a lot with that this is a mock draft. Nobody in a lot of real rookie drafts, people need running backs. You still need running backs, even if he doesn't have the same upside as those wide receivers. You typically tend to think you can find wide receivers a little bit easier than you can find running backs. So one of the interesting things I've been kind of thinking about, which I'll just put out, which I know a lot of other people have been talking about too, but with Kenneth Walker or Breece Hall or those top tier guys, the guys that went in the second round, look at what you were able to sell Javonte Williams for this offseason before they brought back Melvin Gordon. And Javonte Williams did not have an explosive rookie season. I mean, he showed us flashes. He had a good rookie season. He didn't have a great one. And you could have sold Javonte Williams for a king's ransom this offseason. So, I mean, if you have a Kenneth Walker, maybe you don't love him, but you just let him do his thing this year. Maybe, play as an RB2, show that upside. And I think you could probably sell him for a lot more than you could have pre-draft. We have Bo here at with the comment. We knew he had an opinion, man. He's got one right here. Calvin Austin here was Bo's favorite pick. He went at the 4.9, which that does seem like great value. Bo gave it an A+. I mean that feels like a really good one, especially if Deontay Johnson doesn't get paid, which I think we're kind of all expecting next year for him not to get the extension that he's probably going to want. Given what these receivers are going for, I think Deontay Johnson's going to ask for a big payday, and I think he's going to be a little disappointed with the market, maybe the same way that an AJ Brown was and some of these other wide receivers. So if he walks or he leaves next year, I mean, and you're talking about a Chase Claypool, George Pickens, Calvin Austin wide receiver room, I think that could get exciting for Calvin Austin managers out there for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But look, this draft, I think the best part about these rookie mocks is we see where guys actually would go in a vacuum. So we see where you value the talent more than the need. And I think that's a really important thing to think about because everyone values need, but the whole thing in rookie drafts is you're supposed to draft for value, not for need. And I think a lot of people sometimes forget that when you're going in. So we see guys who might have drafted Isaiah Spiller at like 2-3 or 2-4 because they needed running backs. I myself drafted a running back at 108 that was not named Kenneth Walker or Breece Hall because I desperately needed a running back, and he's my RB3. So there's situations that you run into, but these mocks are good because you see who people think are the best players, and that's exactly what Bo said. You draft the best players and you trade for what you need.
See, and that's what I was going to say is the idea for sure, and I don't think anybody necessarily disagrees with it, is you do pick the best players. You want to get the most talent on your roster. I think sometimes it does vary on the leagues that you're in, because sometimes you're in a league where it's not that active. I have some leagues where I wake up every morning with a trade offer from somebody. There are those leagues where everybody's always moving. That if you need something, you will be able to trade for it, just given, subject to the price. And there are other leagues where that there's not active trading. That people are a little gun shy when it comes to making big trades. And so in the rookie drafts, in the back of your head, you're like, I know I got to pick the best player available, but I need a running back, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to get one. So sometimes that clouds our judgment. Sometimes we do pick for need instead of the best player, and I think maybe that's sometimes based on the need. But I agree. I think it was interesting to kind of see in a vacuum when you didn't need to pick a running back where we actually saw Kenneth Walker go kind of right behind that top tier wide receivers. So This was really fun. I enjoyed it. I think that the guys in our draft room did. They looked to be having fun in the chat and in the Twitter group that you made for them. So this was a good one for sure. And I think we hit it a good time. A lot of rookie drafts are done, but there are still some to go.
Yes, sir. And we want to thank everyone for tuning in, hanging out, coming to watch. Look, if you guys enjoyed this, please do us a favor, hit the subscribe button on YouTube, hit the little bell so you know when we go live. We're live every week, whether it's usually Tuesday, but it can be flexible like we are tonight. But
if the Sixers are playing on a Tuesday, we might switch it up.
Yes, that's a big if, considering that they
hopefully they play again this season.
Yes, yeah, hopefully we see that.
Hopefully
soon.
We get to another Tuesday.
Yes, absolutely. But thank you guys. This has been another episode of High Floor Football. We will see you guys next week. Thank you, Jay, and we will see you guys on the flip side.